Henry Lee Lucas, infamously dubbed the Confession Killer, remains one of the most enigmatic figures in criminal history. His confessions span hundreds of unsolved cases, painting a picture of some relentless predator. Yet, controversy shrouds his admissions, leading to debates on the truthfulness of his claims and the methods employed by authorities. And today we're going to talk about him. Henry Lee Lucas was born in a one-bedroom log cabin in Blacksburg, Virginia. He lost an eye at the age of 10 after it became infected in a subsequent fight with his older brother. A friend later described Lucas as a child who would often get attention by displaying frighteningly strange behavior. His mother, Viola, was a prostitute who would force her son to watch her engaging in sex with clients and who would make him cross-dress in public. Purportedly so she could pimp him out later to men and women. Eventually, Lucas's school teachers complained about the cross-dressing and the court put in an order to end that entire thing. In December 1949, Lucas's alcoholic father, Anderson Lucas, died of hypothermia after drinking to intoxication and collapsing outside while in a blizzard. Shortly after, while in the 6th grade, Lucas dropped out of school and ran away from home, drifting around Virginia for a time being. He claimed to have committed his first murder in 1951 when he said he strangled the 17-year-old Laura Burnsley after she refused his sexual advances. As with most of his confessions, Lucas later retracted this claim. Basically, he said it and then he took it back. On June 10, 1954, Lucas was convicted on over a dozen counts of burglary in and around Richmond, Virginia, and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Although he escaped in 1957, he was recaptured 3 days later and was subsequently released on September 2nd in 1959. In late 1959, Lucas traveled to Tecumseh, Michigan to live with his half-sister Opal. How terrible is that city name? Tecumseh? Like, bro, come on. It sounds like a British kid. Like, oh, would you like Tecumseh? Like, come on. Sorry to anybody living in Tecumseh. That's tragic. Around this time, he was engaged to marry a pen pal with who he's been talking to basically since he was incarcerated. When Lucas's mother visited him for Christmas, she disapproved of her son's fiance and insisted that he move back to Blacksburg to take care of her since she was growing old. He was not trying to do that. They argued repeatedly, and these arguments escalated until January 11th, 1960, when, according to Lucas, she struck him over the head with a broom, at which point he stabbed her in the neck. So he took that shit up several notches at that point. Lucas then fled the scene. He subsequently said, "All I remember was slapping her along the neck, but after I did that, I saw her fall and decided to grab her. But she fell to the floor, and when I backed up to pick her up, I realized that she was dead. Then I noticed that I had my knife in my hand, and she had been cut." Like, bro, how did you not notice this at all? Like, what are you even talking about at this point? Opal returned later and discovered their mother alive, but in a pool of blood. She called an ambulance, but it arrived too late. The official police report stated that Lucas's mother died of a heart attack precipitated by the assault. Lucas was soon arrested in Ohio on the outstanding Michigan warrants. He claimed to have killed his mother in self-defense, but his claim was rejected, and he was sentenced to up to 40 years imprisonment in Michigan for second-degree murder. After serving 10 years in prison, though, he was released in June 1970 due to prison overcrowding. This guy got lucky as fuck at that point. Not that he deserved to get out early, because realistically, bro, you killed your mother, and you claim to have killed some other girl already, so kind of weird, but like, overcrowding and you're letting go the murderer? Like, what the fuck? I would bet so much of my money. I don't even got a lot of money, you know what I mean? But I would bet a lot of it to say that there was still people locked up in there on drug offenses and just other stupid ass shit that you could have let them out. But you chose to let the guy that killed his mother go. Like, bro, come on, let's use some common sense, guys. In 1977, Lucas befriended Otis Toole and settled in Jacksonville, Florida. There he lived with Toole's parents and became close to Toole's adolescent niece, Frida Becky Powell, who had a mild intellectual disability and had escaped from a juvenile detention center. A period of stability followed, with Lucas working as a roofer, fixing neighbors' cars, and scavenging for scrap. So he was doing alright after that. Powell was put into a state shelter by the authorities after her mother and grandmother died in 1982. Lucas convinced her to run away with him, and they lived on the road, eventually traveling all the way to California, where an employer's wife asked them to work for her infirm mother, 82-year-old Kate Rich. However, Rich's family turned the couple out, accusing them of failing to do their jobs and writing their checks on Rich's account. Basically, they thought they were scamming them. I'm not 100% sure if they were or not. I wouldn't really doubt it. But anyways, yeah, so they basically put them out of that job and kicked them out because they wasn't dealing with that stuff. While hitchhiking, Lucas and Powell were picked up by the minister of a Pentecostal religious communion called the House of Prayer, located in Stoneburg, Texas. Believing Lucas and the 15-year-old Powell were a married couple, the minister found Lucas a job as a roofer while allowing the couple to stay in a small apartment on the commune, where they even attended church services. Powell became an argumentative and homesick for Florida. When she turned up absent, Lucas claimed that she left at a truck stop in Bowie, Texas. So basically, she was getting sick of it and started to get argumentative, and basically Lucas is just saying, oh, she dipped. In June 1983, Lucas was arrested on charges of unlawful possession of a firearm by Texas Ranger Phil Ryan. Later, he confessed to the murders of Powell and Rich and led the police to their purported remains. Although forensic evidence alone was inconclusive and the coroner stopped short of positively identifying either of them, Lucas' participation in the investigation was served to boost his credibility in later confessions to other crimes. Lucas later denied involvement, but the consensus is that he did end up murdering Powell and Rich. So everybody thinks that he did, even though coroner couldn't really confirm it, and they couldn't really tell by the bodies or anything like that. So still kind of iffy, but majority of people believe that he did kill these ones. In November of 1983, Lucas was transferred to a jail in Williamson County, Texas. He reported that he attempted suicide after receiving rough treatment by the inmates and claimed that the police stripped him naked, denied him cigarettes and bedding, held him in a cold cell, tortured his genitalia, and did not allow him to contact any attorney. In interviews with law enforcement personnel, Lucas confessed to numerous additional unsolved killings. It was thought that there was a positive corroboration with Lucas' confession in 28 unsolved murders. The Lucas Task Force was established by James B. Adams, the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety. So, this guy was admitting to so many killings that they literally set up an entire task force just to cover him and his confessions, or however you want to take it. But that's pretty serious, bro, if they're dedicating an entire department to you. You know what I mean? The Lucas Task Force officially cleared 213 previously unsolved murders as a result of Lucas's confession. Lucas received preferential treatment that was extremely lax for somebody supposedly thought to be a cunning mass murderer. He was frequently taken to restaurants and cafes, rarely handcuffed, allowed to wander police stations and jails, and he even knew the security door codes. Dude, he was plugged in at this point. They were loving him because they were supposedly figuring out all these unsolved cases, probably making these cops tons of money at the same time. So they were kind of letting him be a little bit more free, even though apparently he had killed 218 people at this point. Later attempts at determining Lucas's involvement in his confessed crimes were complicated when it was discovered that he had been given access to information in the files of cases that he was confessing to. There were suggestions that the interview tapes showed that Lucas would read the reactions of those interviewing him and alter what he was saying, thereby making his confessions more consistent with facts known to law enforcement. The most serious allegation against the Lucas Task Force is that they had let Lucas read case files on unsolved crimes, enabling him to come up with convincingly detailed confessions and making it virtually impossible to determine if he was actually telling the truth about a relatively large number of the murders. Like I said, man, he was claiming just tons of different unsolved cases, basically anyone that he figured, oh, I can lie and make sure that they believe that this is me. Especially if he's already about to spend 40 years in prison and he's getting treated this good, I can kind of see why he's just kind of feeding these people these stories, you know what I mean? Journalist Hugh Answorth and others investigated the truthfulness of Lucas's claims for articles that appeared in the Dallas Times-Herald. They calculated that Lucas would have had to use his 13-year-old Ford station wagon to cover 11,000 miles or 17,000 kilometers in 1 month to have committed the crimes police attributed to him. After the story appeared in April 1985 and revealed the flawed methods of the Lucas Task Force, law enforcement opinions began to turn against their claims that crimes had been solved. Basically, they were figuring out that, dude, this guy is using a 13-year-old car traveling 11,000 miles. It's closer to 18,000 kilometers for everybody else in the world, which is a fucking huge distance. This guy was apparently traveling all around this country killing people in a 13-year-old car that would never break down or anything like that in such a short span of time. Basically, they were just calling bullshit on this at this point. The bulk of the Lucas report was devoted to a detailed timeline of Lucas's claimed murders. The report compared his claims to reliable verified sources for his whereabouts. The results often contradicted his confessions, thus casting doubt on his participation in most of the crimes he had confessed to. Texas Attorney General Jim Maddox wrote that when Lucas was confessing to hundreds of murders, those with custody over Lucas did nothing to bring an end to this hoax. We have found information that would lead us to believe that some officials cleared cases just to get them off the books. Lucas remained convicted of 11 homicides. He had been sentenced to death for one, a then unidentified woman dubbed the Orange Socks, whose body was found in Williamson County on Halloween 1979. Despite a timesheet recording his presence at work in Jacksonville, Florida on that day, Lucas was granted a stay on his death sentence after it was discovered that details in his confession came from the case file which he had been given to read. The sentence was commuted to life imprisonment in 1998 by then-Governor George W. Bush. On March 12, 2001 at 11 p.m., Lucas was found dead in prison from congestive heart failure at age 64. Lucas's credibility was damaged by his lack of precision. He initially admitted to have killed 60 people, a number which he raised to over 100 victims, and police accepted that, and then to a figure of 600 that led him to not be taken seriously. Of more than 3,000 murder cases in which he was a suspect, police believed that more than 200 cases were committed by him. However, he remained publicized as America's most prolific serial killer despite denials such as flatly saying, "I am not a serial killer."
And your mother's name?
Viola. She died in 60 when we got in a fight and she got killed.
Okay, so is that the only, I was thinking that was the only killing that you had?
That's the only one I know of, that I've ever done.
Nonetheless, some continue to believe that Lucas was responsible for a massive number of killings. Criminologist Eric W. Hickey cites an unnamed investigator who interviewed Lucas several times and concluded that he probably had killed about 40 people. Such assertions were given little credence, with the lawmen involved refusing to corroborate these claims. An experienced Texas Ranger to whom Ryan's team allowed access to Lucas said that although it was obvious to him that Lucas often lied, there was an instance where he demonstrated guilty knowledge, saying, "I remember him trying to cop to one that he didn't do, and there was another murder case where I'll kiss your butt if he didn't lead us right to the deer stand where the murder took place." That was a direct quote from this guy. I wouldn't have said it like that. He said, "Ain't no way he could have guessed that, and I damn sure I didn't tell him. I think that he did that one." Other Rangers had similar experiences with Lucas, so basically most of these Texas Rangers kind of figured out like, oh, this guy is lying a lot. But then sometimes he would give like such little minute details that would actually lead them to a body that they were like, fuck, maybe he did do this one, you know what I mean? But most of the time they were kind of picking up like, yo, this guy is lying a whole lot. And so far, DNA evidence has verified that Lucas did not kill at least 20 of his supposed victims. And that's all so far. I'm assuming that they might still be testing these people, especially because a lot of this stuff was already unsolved cases that they were just kind of attributing to this guy. So maybe in the future more might come out that he actually did or that he didn't. But now with DNA testing and all this new technology stuff, so this stuff is still getting updated as we go. But yeah, confession killer, 600 bodies, bro. I kind of doubt it, dude. Like, honestly, especially if you like I don't know, bro. I just feel like, dude, you're about to kill yourself because like the other inmates aren't treating you good. Yet you're the guy that killed 600 people. Like, let's be real, bro. Come on. I feel like that doesn't equal out. You know what I mean? But anyways, this is like second or third one of these serial killer videos I've done, true crime, whatever you want to call it. So I'll make sure I link the other ones below. And yeah, stay safe, stay dangerous, especially because there's people like this out in the world. And that's it, man. Hey, subscribe, like, all that YouTube stuff. And other than that, get laid. I'll catch y'all later. Deuces.